Imagine being called worthless by your own family. Every single day. Your brothers get the business, your sister gets the estate, and you? You get nothing but insults and a one-way ticket out of the mansion. That was my reality for 23 years. But here's what they didn't know. While they were counting the millions they thought they'd inherit, I was building something they couldn't even imagine. Something so big that when Forbes finally revealed it, my father literally collapsed. The failure child, that's what they called me. The one who'd never amount to anything. The embarrassment of the family name. Today, I'm worth more than all of them combined. And they have no idea how it happened. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you 3 things that will blow your mind. First, the exact moment my family threw me out and why it was actually the best thing that ever happened to me. Second, the secret business I built in plain sight that nobody noticed until it was too late. And third, the phone call that changed everything, the one where my brother begged me for money. But the truth behind this story? It's darker than you think, because this isn't just about money. It's about revenge, justice, and a family that's about to learn the hardest lesson of their lives. My name doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what happened next. Let me show you exactly how this happened, step by step. I grew up in what most people would call paradise, a 15-bedroom mansion in Connecticut, private schools, summer homes, the kind of wealth where you never see a price tag. My father built a real estate empire from nothing. He came from poverty and turned himself into a $100 million success story. He was ruthless, brilliant, and absolutely convinced that only certain people deserved his legacy. I wasn't one of them. See, my family had this old-school mentality. Sons inherit the business. Daughters marry well. And if you don't fit the mold, you're invisible. I was the youngest of 4 kids. My 2 older brothers were golden boys, star athletes, perfect grades, everything Dad wanted. My sister played her role perfectly too. Charity galas, the right friends, engaged to a senator's son by 22. Then there was me. I was quiet. I liked computers and coding. I spent weekends building websites instead of playing golf. I asked questions about why we did things instead of just following orders. My father hated that. The breaking point came 3 days after my college graduation. The whole family gathered for Sunday dinner. That's when Dad announced his succession plan. My oldest brother Marcus would take over the commercial division. My middle brother James would handle residential properties. My sister Elena would manage the family foundation and public image. And me? Nothing. Not even mentioned. I sat there at that long mahogany table, watching everyone celebrate, and realized I didn't exist to them. I was a ghost in my own family. But here's the first surprise most people don't expect. I wasn't upset. I was relieved. Because 3 years earlier, I'd started something. A little side project I never told anyone about. A tech platform that solved a problem I'd noticed while watching my father's business. Real estate companies were terrible at data. They wasted millions on bad decisions because they couldn't predict market trends. I built an AI system that could. I called it Property Pulse, and I'd been testing it quietly using fake names and shell companies. It was already making money, not much, about $40,000 a month. But I saw something they didn't. This wasn't just a tool. It was the future of the entire industry. The second surprise? My family made it easy to leave. 2 weeks after that dinner, my mother called me. She said Dad was disappointed I hadn't found my direction yet. She suggested maybe I needed to live independently for a while. Figure things out. Translation: get out. They offered me $50,000 as a head start. I took it. I packed my car. And I drove away from that mansion, knowing I'd never ask them for anything again. They thought they were cutting me off. They had no idea they were setting me free. Now here's where things get really interesting. The first year on my own was brutal. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I lived in a tiny studio apartment in Austin. No furniture except a mattress and a desk. I ate ramen and peanut butter sandwiches. Some days I couldn't afford both food and internet, so I'd sit in coffee shops for hours. But I had something my family never gave me: freedom to build without anyone watching. Property Pulse was growing. Slowly at first. I'd reached out to small real estate companies, offering them free trials. The results were insane. One company in Arizona used my system and increased their profits by 37% in 3 months. Another in Florida avoided a terrible investment that would have bankrupted them. Word spread fast in the industry. Here's what made Property Pulse different. Every other real estate tech was basically fancy spreadsheets. Mine used machine learning to predict neighborhood growth, demographic shifts, even which properties would appreciate fastest, based on hundreds of factors humans couldn't track. I was seeing patterns 5 years before they happened. By month 18, I had 43 clients paying me between $3,000 and $7,000 a month. That's roughly $200,000 in monthly revenue. After costs, I was netting about $100,000 a month. I was making more than most doctors, living in a crappy studio apartment, and my family had no clue. The big breakthrough came from an unexpected place. A venture capital firm in San Francisco had been watching the real estate tech space. They noticed Property Pulse kept appearing in success stories. They tracked me down through some of my clients. Their offer? $10 million for 20% of my company. That valued Property Pulse at $50 million. I was 25 years old. I said no. Not because it was a bad offer, but because I'd run the numbers. I knew what I had. Within 3 years, I projected Property Pulse would be worth at least $300 million. I was right. Actually, I was wrong. It was worth way more. Instead of selling, I took a $5 million investment for just 8%. That gave me runway to scale faster without giving up control. I used that money to hire developers, expand the AI capabilities, and target bigger clients. Within 6 months, I signed contracts with 3 major national real estate firms. Revenue exploded. We jumped from $200,000 a month to $1.2 million a month. But here's the part that still makes me smile. My second brother, James, he worked for one of those firms. His company started using Property Pulse. He raved about it in the family group chat I still secretly read. He called it revolutionary technology and said, "Whoever built this is a genius." He had no idea the genius was me, his failure brother, the one who lacked direction. I could have told them then, but where's the fun in that? Year 3 was when things went completely insane. Property Pulse wasn't just predicting markets anymore. It was changing them. Investors were making decisions based on our data. Billion-dollar firms were restructuring their strategies around our insights. We became essential infrastructure. I raised a second round of funding. $60 million at a $350 million valuation. I only sold 8 more percent. I still owned 74% of a company worth $350 million. On paper, I was worth about $260 million. My father's entire empire? Estimated at $120 million. I'd already won, and they still didn't know I was playing. But if you think that's crazy, wait until you hear this. Year 4 is when I made my biggest move. The one that would eventually put me on Forbes. I'd noticed something fascinating. Property Pulse had all this data about real estate trends, right? But we weren't using it ourselves. We were just selling insights to others. That felt stupid. So I started buying property, not random properties, exactly the ones my AI said would explode in value within 3 to 5 years. I started small. A few apartment buildings in Nashville, some commercial space in Denver, a neighborhood in Phoenix that looked like nothing special. I spent $40 million of my own money. Plus, I borrowed another $80 million from investors who trusted my system. Total investment, $120 million in properties everyone else ignored. My family would have called this reckless. They only bought proven assets in established markets. I was buying the future, but I needed to hide it. I didn't want anyone connecting these purchases to Property Pulse. If people knew I was buying specific properties, they'd just copy us. So, I created something genius. A network of shell companies with boring names. Redstone Holdings, Maple Investment Group, Summit Property Trust. 16 different companies, all secretly owned by me, all managed through a single private trust. Nobody could connect them. Nobody could see the pattern. Except for one person. And this is where the story gets really interesting. I hired a woman named Sarah Chen as my chief financial officer. She was brilliant, MIT graduate, worked at Goldman Sachs, turned down promotions to join my tiny operation. She saw what I was building and said something I'll never forget. You're not creating a tech company, you're creating an empire, and you're doing it invisibly. She was right. Property Pulse was the engine. But the real wealth was in the properties I was accumulating. Sarah suggested we take it further. She said, if your AI is this good, we should start a private equity fund. Let ultra-wealthy people invest in your picks. Take 20% of their profits. We launched Phantom Capital. Minimum investment, $10 million. Within a year, we had $600 million under management from 43 investors, celebrities, tech founders, old money families. They all wanted in. The returns were ridiculous. Our first year, 73% returns. Our second year, 61%. For context, the stock market averages about 10%. We were crushing it. By year 5, Property Pulse was valued at $1.2 billion. I owned 66% after some employee stock options. That's roughly $800 million in that company alone. My personal real estate portfolio? Those boring properties I'd bought, they'd tripled in value, now worth $360 million. Minus the $80 million I owed, I had $280 million in equity. Phantom Capital was managing $2.1 billion in assets. At 20% of profits, we'd made about $240 million in fees over 3 years. After expenses and paying Sarah's team, I'd personally kept about $180 million. Added up, $800 million plus $280 million plus $180 million. I was worth approximately $1.26 billion. I was a billionaire at 30 years old, and I'd done it completely under the radar. My family thought I was still figuring things out. They'd occasionally ask my sister if she'd heard from me. She'd say I was doing something with computers. That something with computers had made me 10 times richer than our father. But here's the twist that changes everything. My oldest brother Marcus made a catastrophic mistake. He convinced my father to invest heavily in a luxury condo development in Miami. Prime location, right on the water, targeting ultra-rich buyers. My AI had screened that exact project. Property Pulse gave it a risk score of 8.7 out of 10. Meaning near certain failure. Why? The data showed that market segment was about to crash. Luxury real estate was overheating. Foreign investment was pulling out. Climate change insurance was skyrocketing. I saw the collapse coming 18 months before it hit. Marcus didn't. He put $80 million of family money into that project. It failed spectacularly. The developer went bankrupt. The property sat unfinished. My family lost everything they'd invested. That $80 million loss didn't just hurt. It shattered them. It triggered debt calls on other properties. It forced them to sell assets at terrible prices. Within 8 months, my father's $120 million empire had shrunk to $40 million, and they were still drowning in debt. My failure? It had saved me from copying their strategy. My exile? It had forced me to innovate instead of inheriting. Their punishment had been my salvation. This brings us to the most shocking discovery of all. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning. I was in my office in Austin. We'd just moved into a beautiful new building. Nothing crazy, but professional. The company had grown to 230 employees. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello? Is this really you? I recognized the voice immediately. My brother James. We hadn't spoken in 7 years. Yeah, it's me. How did you get this number? We need to talk. It's about Dad. He's sick. Heart problems. The doctors say stress. The business troubles have been killing him. I felt a twinge of something. Not quite sympathy, but not satisfaction either. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I meant it, kind of. There's more, James continued. His voice was shaking. We're in serious trouble. The Miami project destroyed us. We're about to lose everything. The house, the properties, all of it. There was a long pause. We need help. Marcus found out about Property Pulse. He figured out it was yours. We've been using your platform for years without knowing. And then he saw some articles mentioning the founder's background. He put it together. My heart was pounding. What do you want, James? We need money. A loan, $10 million. We'll pay you back with interest. We just need time to restructure. Please. Your family. Family. That word. The word that meant nothing when they kicked me out. Now suddenly, it meant everything. Let me think about it, I said. I'll call you back. I hung up. I sat in my office for 3 hours, just thinking. Sarah knocked on my door. You okay? You've been sitting in the dark. I told her everything. The whole story. My family. The rejection. Their crisis. She listened quietly. Then she said, What do you want to do? I don't know. Part of me wants to help. They're still my family. But another part of me wants them to know? She finished. I nodded. Sarah smiled. Then don't do either. Do something better. Show them who you really are. That's when the plan formed. I called James back that evening. I'll help you, I said. But not with a loan. I'm going to buy Dad's company. All of it. I'll pay $50 million. That's $10 million more than it's currently worth with all the debt. It'll clear everything and give you breathing room. James was silent. Then, You have $50 million? I'll have the contracts drawn up. You have 72 hours to decide. He called back in 6 hours. Dad wants to meet you, in person, this Sunday. I drove back to Connecticut, first time in 7 years. The mansion looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I'd just grown. The whole family was there. Mom, Dad, Marcus, James, Elena. They all sat in the living room like it was a funeral. Dad looked old. 73 now, but he looked 85. The stress had carved lines in his face. So, he said, You're doing well. I'm doing okay, I replied. $50 million is generous. Too generous. What do you want? This was the moment I'd imagined 1,000 times. I don't want anything, Dad. I want to help. Nobody helps for nothing, especially not in business. I pulled out a folder. Before you sign anything, I want you to read something. It was a Forbes article, scheduled to publish in 3 days. The headline, The Hidden Billionaire, How a 30-year-old Built a Real Estate Tech Empire Worth $1.2 billion. The article told my whole story. Property Pulse, Phantom Capital, the property investments, the quiet accumulation of wealth. My father read slowly. His hands started shaking. This is you? That's me. Marcus grabbed the papers. His face went white. This says you're worth over $1 billion. Give or take, I said. The valuation fluctuates. My mother started crying. Elena just stared at me like she was seeing a ghost. You let us believe. Dad couldn't finish the sentence. I let you believe what you already thought. That I was a failure. I didn't correct you. Why didn't you tell us? Mom asked. Because you never asked. You never cared. I was invisible to you, so I stayed invisible. The room was silent except for my mother's quiet crying.
"The offer stands," I said. 50 million for the company. I'll keep you on as consultants if you want. Pay you each 200,000 a year. Or I walk away and you figure it out yourselves.
My father looked at me with something I'd never seen before: respect and fear. Why would you do this? After everything? I thought about lying, about saying it was just business. But I told the truth instead. Because I'm not like you. You taught me that failure makes you worthless. But you were wrong. Failure made me free. It made me creative. It made me hungry in a way you never were. I stood up. You have 72 hours. My lawyers will be in touch. I walked out of that mansion, and I swear I floated to my car. They signed the deal 48 hours later.
So what does all this mean for us today?
Here's what I learned that nobody tells you about success and family and revenge. First lesson: being underestimated is a superpower. When nobody expects anything from you, you have zero pressure. You can experiment. You can fail privately. You can try crazy things that people with reputations can't risk. My brothers had to succeed in the family business. They had to make Dad proud. Every decision was scrutinized. Every mistake was a crisis. I had nothing to lose, so I took risks they never could. I built Property Pulse because I didn't care if it failed. I invested in weird markets because nobody was watching. I made aggressive moves because I had no reputation to protect. The failure label set me free. Second lesson: rejection redirects you to your real path. If my family had welcomed me into the business, I'd be running some division of a dying real estate company right now. I'd probably be worth 10 million, maybe 20. Comfortable, but not extraordinary. Getting kicked out forced me to find my own way, and my way was better.
I see this pattern everywhere now. Steve Jobs got fired from Apple and built Pixar. Oprah got fired from her news anchor job and became Oprah. J.K. Rowling got rejected by 12 publishers. Sometimes rejection is redirection. The door closing isn't failure. It's just not your door.
Third lesson: build in silence, reveal in noise. For 7 years, I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. No social media posts, no bragging, no family updates. That silence protected me. It let me focus. It prevented people from copying me, or sabotaging me, or even just stressing me out with their opinions. When you're building something real, noise is your enemy. Everyone wants to give advice. Everyone wants a piece. Everyone wants to tell you why it won't work. Silence keeps all that away.
Then, when you've actually built something undeniable, the reveal has impact. If I'd been posting about Property Pulse from day one, nobody would have cared. But showing up after 7 years as a billionaire, that's a story.
Fourth lesson: the best revenge is evolution. I could have been bitter. I could have spent those 7 years plotting how to hurt my family. Some people do that. They let anger consume them. But I used that energy differently. I channeled it into building. Every time I felt angry at Dad, I worked harder. Every time I remembered being called a failure, I made another smart investment. My revenge wasn't destroying them. It was becoming so successful that their opinions became irrelevant.
That's more satisfying than any confrontation ever could be.
Fifth lesson. Money changes everything, but not how you think. Before I had money, I thought it would make me happy. It didn't. It made me comfortable, sure. I could buy nice things, travel, not stress about bills. But the real power of money isn't stuff. It's options. I could walk away from toxic people. I could say no to bad opportunities. I could invest in long-term plays instead of chasing quick cash. I could help people I cared about. Money bought me freedom, not happiness. Happiness came from building something meaningful and proving something to myself. Now here's something important. My story isn't special because I made $1 billion. Most people won't do that. That's not the point. The point is the pattern. You can apply this at any level. Maybe you're not building $1 billion company. Maybe you're building a $50,000 side business, or a $100,000 freelance career, or a small shop that makes you comfortable. The principles are the same. Use rejection as fuel. Build in private. Focus on providing real value. Don't waste energy on revenge. Invest it in evolution. Your version of success might look completely different than mine. That's fine. The game is proving something to yourself, not them. Speaking of proving things, here's what happened after the Forbes article dropped. The article went viral. 2 million views in the first week. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know my story. Interview requests from Bloomberg, CNBC, The Wall Street Journal. I said no to most of them. I did one podcast interview where I talked about building Property Pulse. I kept my family drama private, but the business impact was insane. Property Pulse got 347 new client inquiries in 2 weeks. We signed 91 new contracts. Revenue jumped 40% in a single quarter. Phantom Capital had to close to new investors because we got $5 billion in investment applications. We couldn't handle that much capital responsibly. My personal real estate portfolio appreciated another 18% just from the publicity. Apparently, people trust property owned by the hidden billionaire. Net impact. My net worth jumped to about $1.4 billion in 6 months. Meanwhile, my family adjusted to the new reality. Dad stayed on as a consultant for 18 months. He actually learned some things from my team. His pride took a hit, but he learned to respect what I'd built. Marcus moved to California and joined a mid-sized development firm. He's doing okay. We text occasionally. James actually came to work for Property Pulse. He's good at client relationships, and he left his ego at the door. We rebuilt our relationship slowly. Elena got divorced from the senator's son. She's figuring out who she is outside the family expectations. We're close now. She tells me I inspired her to find her own path. Mom took it the hardest. She carries guilt about how they treated me. I've forgiven her, but she hasn't forgiven herself. As for me, I stepped back from day-to-day operations at Property Pulse. I hired a CEO who's brilliant. I'm chairman of the board, but I'm not running the company anymore. I'm focused on new projects. I'm investing in other underestimated founders. I'm building things I find interesting. I bought a nice house. Not a mansion, just a comfortable place in Austin with a good office and a dog. I date. I travel. I sleep well at night. Success didn't make me happy, but building something meaningful on my own terms, that did.
Before we wrap up, there's one final thing you need to know.
About 3 months after the Forbes article, I got a letter, actual physical letter, delivered to my office. It was from my father. He wrote it by hand. His handwriting was shaky now, but readable.
Son, it started. First time he'd called me that in writing.
I need to tell you something I should have said years ago. I was wrong. Not just about you, about everything. I built my company on fear. Fear of being poor again. Fear of losing control. Fear of being seen as weak. I treated everyone around me as either useful or useless, including my own children.
I see now what that cost me. You were never the failure child. I was the failure father. You were creative, curious, independent, all the things I should have celebrated. Instead, I tried to break you.
When you left, I told myself you'd come back broken, ready to follow orders. I wanted you to fail so I could be proven right. But you didn't fail. You soared. And in doing so, you showed me that my entire world view was wrong.
You built something more valuable than anything I ever created. Not just the money, the company itself. Property Pulse helps people make better decisions. It prevents disasters. It creates value. My company? It just moved money around. It made me rich, but didn't make the world better.
I'm proud of you. I should have said that decades ago. I'm saying it now, even though it's too late to matter.
You don't owe me forgiveness. You don't owe me anything. But I wanted you to know that you were right. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. Your father.
I read that letter 5 times. I cried. Not because I needed his approval anymore, but because I finally got closure. He died 7 months later. Heart failure, like the doctors predicted. I was there at the hospital. So were my siblings. In those final hours, he held my hand. He couldn't speak much, but he squeezed my hand and smiled. We understood each other.
At his funeral, I gave the eulogy. I talked about his journey from poverty to success. I talked about his drive and his complexity. I didn't sugarcoat his flaws, but I didn't dwell on them either.
I told one story I'd never told anyone. When I was 7 years old, before things got complicated, Dad taught me how to read financial statements. He sat with me for hours, explaining every line. He was patient. He was kind.
You're smart,
he told me.
You see patterns other people miss.
That's a gift. Somewhere along the way, he forgot that. Or maybe his fear made him forget. But for a moment when I was 7, he saw me clearly. That moment mattered. It planted a seed. It made me believe I could understand money and business. In a weird way, he did give me my empire, not through inheritance, through that one afternoon when he believed in me. That's the final twist in this story. It was never about revenge. It wasn't even about proving them wrong. It was about proving myself right. About validating that 7-year-old kid who loved patterns and numbers and building things. The $1 billion? That's just proof that the kid was onto something.
My family's rejection? That was painful, but it wasn't the real story.
The real story was always about whether I could build something meaningful on my own terms. And I did. That's the victory that actually matters. If this opened your eyes to what's possible when you stop seeking approval and start seeking authenticity, then you understand what I'm really talking about. So, let's bring this all together. What did we just learn?
First takeaway: your value isn't determined by your family's opinion. I was called the failure child, but that label only had power because I believed it for too long. The moment I stopped caring about their approval, I started building real wealth.
Second takeaway: sometimes getting cut off is getting set free. That $50,000 head start was the best investment they ever made in me, even though they meant it as dismissal. It forced me to build instead of inherit. Third takeaway: quiet execution beats loud ambition every time. 7 years of silence, then one massive reveal. That's the pattern. Build in private, win in public. Fourth takeaway: the best revenge is massive success. Not petty revenge, not destruction, just building something so undeniable that their opinions become irrelevant.
Now, if you got value from this story, here's what I need from you. Hit that subscribe button, because I share stories like this every week. Stories about people who were underestimated, who built empires from nothing, who proved everyone wrong. This isn't just entertainment. These are blueprints. These are patterns you can apply to your own life. Drop a like on this video if the story resonated with you. It helps the algorithm show this to more people who need to hear it. And here's what I really want you to do. Leave a comment answering this specific question. What label has your family or society put on you that you're working to prove wrong? Be honest. Be specific. This community is built on people supporting each other's journeys. Maybe you're the not college material kid who's building a business. Maybe you're the too old to change careers person who's starting fresh at 45. Maybe you're the not smart enough student who's learning to code. Tell your story, because somebody else in the comments needs to hear that they're not alone. Now, before you go, there's something deeper I want to offer. A lot of you watching this are at a crossroads. You're underestimated by someone. You're stuck in a situation where people don't see your potential. You want to build something, but you don't know where to start. I created a free email series called The Underestimated Advantage. It's 7 emails over 7 days. Each one breaks down a principle I use to build Property Pulse. Things like how to identify opportunities others miss, how to build with limited resources, how to maintain focus when nobody believes in you, how to use rejection as rocket fuel. The link is in the description. No cost, no upsell, just practical insights from someone who's walked this path. I also want to point you to the next video you should watch. It's about another founder who was rejected by every investor in Silicon Valley. 37 straight rejections. Today, his company is worth $3 billion. And those investors? They're kicking themselves. That video is linked on your screen right now. Click it, because these patterns repeat. Once you start seeing them, you realize that being underestimated might be the biggest advantage you never knew you had. Here's the truth nobody tells you. Success isn't about being the favorite.
It's not about having the most resources or the best connections or the perfect background. Success is about converting pain into progress. It's about using the chip on your shoulder as fuel, not as an excuse. My family thought they were punishing me. They thought they were teaching me a lesson about knowing my place. Instead, they handed me the greatest gift they never meant to give. They showed me that I didn't need their approval, their money, or their network. I just needed to believe in myself more than they disbelieved in me. That's the formula. That's the secret. You don't need to build $1 billion company. You just need to build something that's yours, something that proves to yourself that their limitations don't define you. Start small. Start today. Start without permission. Build something in the next 6 months that makes you proud. Not proud because it's huge, proud because it's yours. That's how you win this game. Before I go, I want to share one more thing. Something I think about every single day. There's a moment that comes for everyone who builds something real. A moment where you realize you've crossed over. You're not trying to prove them wrong anymore. You've moved past that. You're just building because you love building. You're creating because it matters to you. Their opinions have become background noise. That moment, that's the real success. The money is just a side effect. I reached that moment about 2 years into building Property Pulse. I was sitting in my tiny studio apartment, working on code at 2 a.m, and I realized I was happy. Not happy because I was going to be rich. Happy because I was solving interesting problems. Happy because I was learning and growing. My family's approval became irrelevant. My father's disappointment stopped mattering. I was free. That freedom, you can't buy it. You have to build it. So here's my challenge to you. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for someone to believe in you. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Start building your version of Property Pulse today. It doesn't matter if it's a side hustle, a creative project, a new skill, or a business idea. Just start. Build in silence. Let your results be the announcement. And when you're ready, when you've built something undeniable, you'll have your own Forbes moment. Maybe it's not an actual Forbes article. Maybe it's just the moment you quit your job because your side project is paying more. Maybe it's the moment you pay off your debt. Maybe it's the moment you buy your first property or launch your first product. Whatever your version of success looks like, build toward it with the same intensity that I built Property Pulse. Use every rejection as fuel. Use every doubt as motivation. Use every person who underestimated you as proof that their vision is too small. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning. And 5 years from now, when someone asks you how you did it, you'll smile and say, "They thought I was the failure. They were wrong." That's your ending. Now go write it. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep building, keep proving, keep winning. This is your time. Don't waste it seeking approval. Spend it building empire.